in the bold letters at the top of the page, the sentence is actually just a terrible sentence. It doesn't even really make sense. But I was so happy to have the sentence that I typed it and sent it. It's like later on, it's like, I should have spent a little bit more time on that. But we'll get that. We'll get it. Okay. And there is a theme throughout the scriptures that teach to enjoy the benefits of great gain. It often begins with a loss. That great gain, many times, is preceded by great loss. And I think that you can, in your life, you know that. It's like, yes, there was great gain to this, but it was hard. And it's difficult sometimes for us to really even enjoy the greatness of it because the loss was tough. It was really life-altering. And so we're going to look at the scriptures today. There's a lot of scriptures today. And so if you haven't read through all of them, maybe you can do that later on your own. But we're going to start on page 31. It will be the second column if you're following the chronological Bible. If you're not following it, you can turn to your scriptures for Genesis 23. We are going to do 23 and 24 because there's not that much meat for us to learn from in 23. There's plenty of facts, but not for us to take home stuff. It's setting things up. So we're going to run through this chapter 23. Once again, it's on page 31, the second column, about halfway down, where it says the burial of Sarah. In your regular Bibles, Genesis 23, 1. Okay, when Sarah was 127 years old, she died at Currie, which is now called Hebron, in the land of Canaan. There Abraham mourned and wept for her. Okay, we're just going to start here. This is the only time that any woman's age is told in the Bible. And so it was like, okay, so why'd they do that? And after looking that up, that the theologians agree that this was to honor her. This was to show the longevity of her life and the faithfulness and as an honor to her. So at your funerals, if you want us to honor you, no, I'm kidding. Okay. She was how old? Okay. So, but Abraham mourned and wept for her. Boy, they had been through so many things, and he has lost this person. And so he says, then leaving her body, he said to the Hittite elders. Okay, now this is going to matter in a minute, I think. I hope I can explain this well. The Hittites are in the land that we would call Canaan. This land has been promised to Abraham, but it doesn't belong to Abraham. They've not possessed that. Remember, that's going to be years and years and years and years and years before they will possess this land, when Joshua finally goes into Canaan, the promised land. But God has told him, when he departed from Lot, he said, all of this land where you walk as far as you can see, it will be yours. And so he's promised Abraham two major things in the covenant, and it is that he will give him land and he will give him descendants. And at the time, he has no land and he has no children. Okay, so that's the big deal of Abraham and him needing faith. Okay, and him being the father of faith because he is believing God. So he is living in this land, but it is in the Hittites are there. In fact, you remember that when they go in, it says the Hittites, parasites, it's all the thing, parasites, and all the those people that just eat up. No, but all the ites. They are in this land now, and so when Abraham, he was his family, they were idol worshipers. These are not people who knew God. God had not revealed himself to them, and he chose Abraham, and he said, Abraham, and he tells him who he is, and he says, I want you to follow me. And so he says, leave this land out of Ur of the Chaldeans, Babylon. And so he says, I want you to leave here. And I want you to go to this place. And they go to a place called Hebron. Now, you don't have to get all these cities, but just for our story, we're going to have some of this for structure. He's going to come to this place called Hebron, and they are going Haran, Haran, is where they're going to come. I'm sorry, Haran. They're going to come here, and they're going to settle there. And in that land, they are going, then Abram, and Abram at the time, and Lot, and they're going to go on, and they're going on further. But this land right here is still settled. And that's where his father, Terah, will be. And that's where the family, there still will be a family that will be there. But Abram is called to be this sojourner. He is going to just go, he's following God wherever he takes him. And he doesn't know exactly where that is. So this is why he says he is in this land, and he goes to the Hittite elders. He doesn't own this land, but God has promised him this land. Isn't that it's like, it's going to be mine, but it's not mine right now. And he doesn't own anything in that land. But the Hittites do own this land. And so Sarah now has died. So where is she going to be buried? And where do you bury someone if you're a sojourner, if you don't know where you're going to be anyway? So that's the complexity of this. And so he says in verse 4, here I am, a stranger and a foreigner among you. Please sell me a piece of land so I can give my wife a proper burial. And we're going to see which the Hittites replied to Abraham, listen, my Lord, you are an honored prince among us. Choose the finest of our tombs and bury her there. No one here will refuse. You can see that he has been given this favor. It reminds me of Abimelech. Remember Abimelech, he comes and he messes with him. He says, my wife is my sister and you can have her. And then God comes to Abimelech and says, you're gonna perish because of this woman. He's like, what in the world? And then he ends up giving gifts to Abraham. It's like, that story is messed up. Because you're the one that did wrong, and you're the one that you are the one who is getting the gift. And so he's saying, but Abimelech was able to identify there's something special about this man. God is with this man. And that's when he says, as Linda so well taught, it's just that these people recognize that this is the man of God. And he says to him, don't destroy our nation. We want to give you these gifts. I want to, there's a lot of stories today. I don't even begin to think we're going to get through this, so just settle down. But I wasn't here for the story about Abimelech. You remember, because Dean was out, and so that put me out, and so, but I had so much trouble. I really fought with, why would Abraham do wrong, and Abraham got the goods, and Abimelech hadn't done anything wrong, and he ends up giving him all these things. And it was like, it's difficult to understand, and if it's difficult to understand, then to teach. And so I struggled with it, and then when I realized I wasn't going to teach it, I was like, this is great. It's like I don't have to settle this. And so when I called Linda, the best I can remember, make sure I know I thought it. I don't know if I said it to you, but I said, will you teach? Yes. Okay, there's a part in it that's really difficult. Did I say that to you? Yeah, I think so. And it's like, I'm telling you now, it's difficult. This part right here, you can do with it what you want. I don't have it settled. It's yours, And so it's about a week. I don't know when. Time is a funny thing, So I am with Dean, and all I have done for the last time there is I'd spent time on my phone taking care of him and eating. Every time I'd go to the kitchen, there was just never a good time not to eat. It was just never. And so I was spending time, because I knew I wasn't teaching, I wasn't as driven to get in the scriptures and learn all the things. And so it's just like I went to another place, and I knew that the Lord was calling me back. I mean, not like, I'd love for you to be here, it's like quit, and that. And so anyway, I knew that, and I had just kind of, every day it's like, yeah, I didn't do that again. And then the next day it would be like, I know, I will do better, like that. And so that continues. So one night we are coming around, that y'all have already been taught about Abimelech. That's off my plate, if you will. It's like, I just don't know, but I don't have to know, and let it go. That's kind of where I am. And so Dean was in pain this one night. It was the one night that he suffered the most, and it was because the pain block had just worn off, and that matters in the story, okay? So we're coming around the end of the bed. He's taken his medicine about 2 hours before, and so that medicine, I don't have any hope that that's going to kick in. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that should have done it by then. And so he's walking around the end of his bed, and and so I'm behind him making sure that he doesn't fall. And it's like, all of a sudden it was like, do I have the faith to pray that his pain will cease? And my first thought is, no, because I haven't done anything God told me to do. I know what he's been telling me. And I can't go to God now and act like I've done, And I know those are small things, but when you're convicted, they're big things. And so I have big things in my life, but these were small things, but still it was something between God and me. It kept me from having the faith to pray. That's a big thing. And so as I came around the corner, it was just like, oh, I don't know. And it was just like, I just don't know. I have not done right. I don't know that I can even have the faith to pray with seeing this pain, if this is going to go away. And just as I went around the side of that bed, it was like, but God gave to Abraham instead of Abimelech. And it was like, oh, the story I didn't know. It wasn't because we deserve it. It's because we're in covenant with God. And it was like, what a big deal this is. And all of a sudden I wasn't mad at Abraham anymore. and I wasn't even upset with Abimelech, for like, you gave in too soon. You should have not given him those things. That's just going to reinforce that, Instead, it is a picture of the grace of God. It's the grace of God when we've not done right. And God continues to come toward us. And isn't that the story? I want to finish that by saying, I went back. I did pray for him. I went back to another room and I called both the girls. And I said, Dad's in pain, and we jumped right. And he went to sleep and he did not wake up until the next morning. And I knew that God had done that, certainly for him, but he had done that for me too. It was like, we are undeserving people. And when we are trying to be good enough to be in the place of the promises and the covenants of God, we will never, ever, ever make it. And that we need to come back and say, Lord, it is through hard things that we learn great things. And it is not going to be because we show up, we said, yeah, we did it all right. It's because we're going to show up and say, I didn't do it right, and I serve a mighty, awesome God. And this is the story. Abraham has been given favor with the Hittites, with the people, and they are, I don't know where their faith is, but they understand Abraham is in covenant with God. And that is the difference. And so they said, listen, we want to give you this land. Anybody here will give you land. And I'm going to kind of add, I'm just going to talk through this for a minute. Anyone will give you land. And he said, no, I want to pay the full amount. And they said, okay. And he said, if I can have anywhere, if you would go talk to this man, Ephron, E-P-H-R-O-N, if you would go speak to him, I would like that. There's a field down there. It has these pretty trees, these big trees. And I would love those. And it has a cave in there. And I would love to use that. And I would like to buy it. And he said, no, it's yours. And he said, no, I want to do this because and what I believe it meant to Abraham, what it meant to him at this time is, this is land that my people are going to possess. It was a small thing. How did he come into a huge part of the promise of land? It was through the death of his wife. It was through Sarah's the loss. He mourned and wept. But it was through that grief that the covenant of God was first seen of the fulfillment of what would come, that they would possess all that land. So he insisted on buying this. We're going to hold this land here, and we will see later that that's where his family, many of them were indeed buried. In fact, you can go there today to see this cave of the patriarchs, is what it's called. Okay, so that is this land. Okay, so he says, so let's go to verse 19. Then Abraham buried his wife Sarah there in Canaan. Are you with me? Verse 19. Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. And it's also called Hebron. So the field and the caves were transferred from the Hittites to Abraham for use as a permanent burial place. Okay, so then in your chronological Bible, you may not all have this. It's only one verse, so you don't have to look it up. But the author here of Tyndale Bible, they have put in Iva May, they have put now the death of Abram's father. And it is in Genesis, it goes back to Genesis 11:32, and it says Terah lived for 205 years and died while still in Haran. In other words, what it's showing is there is a land over here that his father, where Abram at the time, I guess, his father died here. But Abraham has gone on and continued. But this is where the family is, and it was established when they left, when God called them out. Okay, so we come down now to Genesis 24:1, and it says Abraham was now a very old man, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. One day Abraham said to his oldest servant, the man in charge of his household, take an oath by putting your hand under my thigh. Swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not allow my son to marry one of these local Canaanite women. Go instead to my homeland, to my relatives, and find a wife for my son Isaac. Go back to this place where we first settled and that we've gone on, but this family's here. We're now in the land of Canaan, and it is a promised land, but it is not the land, it is not now occupied by the people of God. These are the enemies of God. These are people that are not in covenant with God. And so he's saying, will you swear to me that you will take this journey? Okay, the idea, look on your page 1 of your notes, if you will, and look down where the next to the last paragraph, if you will, on page 1, Genesis 47:29, when he says at the time of his death, I'm showing you something that later on, chapters later, Jacob called for his son Joseph and said to him, please do me this favor. Put your hand under my thigh and don't swell while my hand's under your thigh. Swear that you will treat me with unfailing love by honoring this last request. Do not bury me in Egypt. He said, swear to me, put this. So this is part of how they would make covenants, how they would make promise. I mean, isn't it funny that we look at this and today it would be like, stick out your little finger and you swear you won't do this, it's like, but he's saying to this man in charge, he's saying, will you go back into this land? And it's because he needs now a wife for Isaac. Now that he finally has Isaac, he no longer has Sarah, and he's coming to 40 years of age and has no children, no wife. And so it's like, okay, now we've got one little bitty plot of this land a burial place, and now we have Isaac, the son of promise. But he knows that God has promised these things. And so he's saying, I want you to go back and you find a woman for her. Find someone who is in covenant with God. And so the easy thing would be to say, there's a lot of pretty women here. So-and-so down the street, isn't she great? Her family's wealthy. All the things that seem like it would be great. There's a beautiful girl down here and all the things. But instead it's like, no, what we need is this in light, that we would see the world in light of how God sees it, instead of pulling back and trusting in the way that we see it. And we have been ordered almost by the community, by the culture, to see things in light of how the culture sees things. But he's saying this is going to be a really hard journey. This is a long way away. In fact, look on the bottom of page 1. It goes to page 2, but it says the servant asked. I'm on the bottom of page 1 of the notes. Okay. The servant asked, what if I can't find a young woman who is willing to travel so far from home? Should I then take Isaac there to live among your relatives in the land you came from? It's like, I'm going to go find a woman in this place, and I don't know her, and I'm going to bring her back here. You almost get the idea of him saying, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if any woman would do that. And he says, you want me just to take Isaac with me? Maybe that would be a better deal. I mean, maybe she could see Isaac and then they could have the relationship. Maybe that's better. And so he says, should I do that? And he says, no, that's not what I want. But at the end on the bottom of page 1, this is what I learned. The journey was likely over 400 miles. Over 400 miles. That is the most generous, I guess, with estimates often cited around 450 miles up to 700 miles away. This is difficult. This is a difficult journey. It's going to be weeks of travel. And you're going to find somebody that you don't know. You're going to find Waldo almost. I mean, this is going to be a lot. And you're not guaranteed. He says, if he goes on to say, if the woman won't come, you're released from this. That's what Abraham says to his servant. If she doesn't come, you're released. But this is what I want you to do. So he doesn't even know for a fact that God is going to move like this. Abraham is saying you will find this favor. But in other words, this is not up to you. And so, but it's going to be hard. It's an inconvenience. Once again, that girl down the street's looking a lot better than she did before. It's like, but boy, she's right here. We could get her saved. How about that? Let's put her in covenant. That's what we'll do. This will make the journey easier. I don't know if that's your default, but it is mine. So many times it's like, I can fix this. And so many times that does not fix that. That we want to see things as God sees them. To say, even in life, I'm going to go this easier way. And God is calling us to hard things. These were hard lives. I read, there was a podcast, and if I could find it again, I would put that link on you know how you just, I don't know, it just appears. And this is what happened. And there was a man, his name was Russell Moore, and he had Jen Wilson, and they were talking over issues. I found it fascinating. I had a little bitty pad of paper, little paper. I took 8 pages of notes. I was fascinated with everything they said. But one of them was, so Russell Moore is the one who's interviewing Jen Wilson, and he asked her, how do you get people interested in the Bible who are not interested? How do you generate interest? And I was like, this would be the last thing I would say would be the answer. And when I heard it, it's like, I know that's right. And it was, you don't make it so easy. We don't want to just come down and say, now listen, you don't really have to do anything. God's going to do all this for you. You just have to read a verse a day. Just start off with just a minute with God, and we dumb it down. And I am queen of this. I have done this, but what really makes interest is to say this is hard, and this God is worth it. If you will set aside this time to really be with Him, seek Him. Seek means you do something. You come out from where you are to look for something. We think of it as you lose some ring or some possession that means nothing to anybody else, but it means a whole lot to you. You lose that. It's like, no, we're going to find this thing. We're going to sweep this thing. We're going to get other people to help. It's because it's worth the pursuit. And God is worth this pursuit. And as we make Him our treasure, and our heart follows. Because where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That we want to say, I'm not saying make it complicated. That's not what we're saying. Make this so hard. Go read the King James Version and start with Leviticus. That's not what this is saying. That's not what they were saying. They were saying, this is something that is so worth your time. Invest here and see how this goes. And that we would encourage each other to do the hard things. And in life, as believers, that we would encourage each other. Yes, it is hard. What you're going through is hard. Many of you are going through really, really hard times. Liz, yes, was so grateful for your cards. Dean was so grateful for your cards. But those are not the only hurts. There are so many things. But if God is in this, and He is indeed working these things together for our good with purpose, and He is interested in keeping His promises to us, but the journey is hard, let us persevere in this journey and say, it is hard and God is worth it. And so he's saying here, He sends him to this place. Abraham's very old. He sends him. Verse 5, he says, it's so far from home. Verse 6, Abraham said, be careful to never take my son there. Do not take my son to that place. For the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and my native land, solemnly promised to give this land to his descendants. In other words, if you take Isaac there and he marries some woman there, even though she's a believer, he's away from the land. He's looking at it not, this is what is going to keep up, if you will, with the Joneses. I don't know how many of your last name is Jones, but you ended up in a pretty fancy place. But okay, so that we are not keeping up, just making it a cookie cutter of every family and every life looks like the other. that we are to be conformed to Christ, and that will look different on all of us, with the end result being that we look like Christ. But it will be within our own personalities, within our own sphere, within the way God made us to impact others and to live for him. And so he says, don't let them go here, because I have a vision. I know the promises of God. It is descendants and it is this land. So we need to go get we need to go get somebody to have a descendant, and it needs to be in this land. He's doing it within the perimeters of what God has told him. And that's where we often miss the things of God, is that we lose the promises of God to be able to say, it is well with my soul. It's so crazy. I don't think I've ever had this in my whole life, but right now I have two friends that are in these places, so I'm getting these texts. And so one of them is in Mexico. She went down there for a trip. Tammy Brown, who comes here, went to Mexico for a trip, and so the place catches on fire the night she was there, or the next morning. Debbie, do you know?
I think it was the next morning.
The next morning it starts. Okay, so here they are, and then Lori Vanderpool, some of you know, she's in Israel, and so they're in these bomb shelters and stuff. So they're praying, and it's like, okay, we've got food we've got food now, we're good, but just that the Lord and there's peace. But this is where we are equipped, not because it's this Bible study, it's because it's this Bible. This Bible will equip us to find out what God wants, so that then when we are in these places, we know that our feet are steady, that we are cooperating with the promises of God. So he says to him, verse 9, so the servant took the oath, he swore, I'll do this. So he loaded 10 of Abraham's camels. You take a trip with a camel. 10 camels. Can you imagine? Can you even imagine? If I took off with 10 camels, I would never find my way where I was going, and I wouldn't have a single camel left, I'm sure of it, unless the Lord was in it. But he traveled to this distant place, and he's going to go back, and he goes to the town where Abraham's brother Nahor had settled. How in the world was it that Nahor had settled there? Because that's where they all were when they first left Ur of Babylon. Okay, this is where they had settled, and he's sending him back from Canaan back to this land. So these are his people. He made the camels kneel beside a well just outside the town. It was evening, and the women were coming out to draw water. Okay, I don't think there's any way in the world this man figured out exactly how long it was going to take to go this distance with 10 camels and arrive he doesn't have an estimated time of arrival. But he does end up coming there at this time. And it is the sovereignty of the Lord. And that's what we often dismiss. The Lord is calling me to something I can't figure out, but I can figure out that God is for me, and this is what he's asked me to do. And he's had him to arrive at evening. The women were coming out to draw water. Oh Lord, God of my master Abraham, he prayed, please give me success today and show unfailing love to my master Abraham. See, I am standing here beside this spring, and the young women of the town are coming out to draw water. This is my request. I will ask one of them, please give me a drink from this jug. If she says, yes, have a drink, and I will water your camels too, then let her be the one that you've selected as Isaac's wife. It's like, how in the world would I find this woman? Okay, you've sent me here to do this for my father, who is about the Lord, if you will, Abraham. He believes that you have told him to do this. He has asked me to do this. And so according with your will, would you let me find her like this? This is how I will know that you have shown unfailing love to my master. And he says, before he had finished praying, this young woman named Rebecca comes out with her water jug on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, who was the son of Abraham's brother Nahor. Well, your first question is, okay, she's out because that's a relative. But at this point, they were still allowed to intermarry with family. You started with Adam and Eve, and it continues. There is a time where it comes up where that is no longer okay, but at this point it is. And so this is Abraham's brother and his wife Milcah, and they have Rebecca. Rebecca was very beautiful and old enough to be married, but she was still a virgin. She went down to the spring, filled her jug, and came up again. And running over to her, the servant said, please, give me a little drink of water from your jug. Yes, my lord, she answered. Have a drink. And she quickly lowered her jug from her shoulder and gave him a drink. When she had given him a drink, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have enough to drink. So she quickly emptied her jug into the watering trough and ran back to the well to draw water for all his camels. So he did make it with the camels. The servant watched her in silence, wondering whether or not the Lord had given him success in his mission. I think that's a good wondering. It's like it's going just like I asked, but he's still got this wisdom. Lord, is this you? Then at last, when the camels had finished drinking, he took out a gold ring for her nose and 2 large gold bracelets for her wrists. Now, these are going to be wealthy gifts, okay? He's going to give her these gifts. And so, whose daughter are you? He asked. And please tell me, would your father have any room to put us up for the night? I am the daughter of Bethuel, she replied. My grandparents are Nahor and Milcah. Yes, we have plenty of straw and feed for the camels, and we have room for a guest. The man bowed low and worshiped the Lord. Praise the Lord, the God of my master Abraham. He said, the Lord has shown unfailing love and faithfulness to my master, for he has led me straight to the master's relatives. How did he come to this place of worship? That God fulfilled what he asked. It was in a difficult journey. It was because of the difficulty in not knowing that it made the greatness of finding out even greater. It's what God did for me with Abimelech. I didn't like the story. I don't want it in there. I can't figure it out. But we wrestle with it. And all of a sudden it's like, I love this story. Because we suddenly see it for what it is. But sometimes we don't want to wrestle with the things of God because it's almost like we're either lazy or we come to the place of just like, I'm never going to know this. And what if I find out something about God I don't want him to be? Do you see the idolatry in that? Because we want to know who God is no matter what God says. If God says that this is what I choose, and we would say, I don't think you should do that. That we would still be able to say, but you know what? You're God. You're God and you're good, and you're not going to change. So I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to adjust to what you're saying. There are things in here where like, I just wish that weren't in the Bible. I understand, but it is. And so we want to wrestle through those things and hang on to truth, because when it is revealed in the end, it will be glorious. I believe that, I don't know how heaven works, of course, but I do believe it is something like that. We say, that's going to be one of the questions I'm going to ask God. And we're going to get there and go, I don't have a question to ask you. I think this is marvelous in my eyes. It is over the top. And now I see what I saw just dimly that didn't look right. It wasn't right. And instead of us judging God, that we would say, this journey is hard and you are good. And that we would wrestle with him. Isn't that the story of Jacob? This is a man who wrestled with God, and he said, bless me. The blessing often comes through doing the hard things. And we have a tendency to look at people and say, they're going through such a hard time, or I don't know why this is going like this for this person. And it may be that it is the very, very apex. The journey is hard because the blessing is great. We have a tendency, you hear it all the time. Yes, and I went there, it's the first thing I got, it's the first thing I saw. I've done this, and I believe it is true. I needed to, let's just say, purchase something, and I had a little time. I'm making up the whole story. But if I needed something, I needed to purchase it fast. I walk in, and there it was on the counter right there. The first thing I grab it, and I'll leave. And I want to say, isn't God good? And we've talked about this so many times. But if you go to this whole place, you go 700 miles away, and you can't find the woman, and you come back, is God still good? And the answer is, he is. And so this is what, it's a journey, and it is hard. But that we would not say, I'm not doing this thing because it's hard. I'm not going to read my Bible because I don't have time. No, it's because it's hard to make time to do it with all the things we want to do. And I'm the very one, I just told you that's me. But that we would say, Lord, I want to do the hard things if they are required for the gain, the treasure that you are. Over and over. Isn't this what we already know? We'll come back to the story in a minute. But isn't this the story that already rings true? Who are the people who God says will be the greatest among us? It's the least, the servant. Okay, who is it? Is it harder to be served or to serve? To serve, right? Right now, if y'all were getting ready to have food, but you are not, if I were going to the kitchen, I was going to fix this food for you and serve it to you. It's easier for you than it would be for me at that moment, right? But God is saying, but I see the servant. I see the one. And so I'm using that as an example. It's not food I'm talking about. But in life, it is an inconvenience to serve. It is easier to be served. But he says, that's not the greatest among you. Christ came. The one with all privilege. He should have had all privilege. And he says, no, I've come to be a servant. That's why I came. I came to lay down my life. What's so interesting is lay down your life, and then what happens? If you lay down your life, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, somebody. You get to live. Yes. How do we find, the Lord says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and then he loses his soul? And he says, but if you will deny yourself, take up your what? Yeah, that's the difficulty. That's the part. It's like, no. I can deny myself a little bit, but take up the cross, that's a lot. And it's a journey. It may be a very long journey. But that in the end, as Christ did, he came to this earth to serve, went to the cross, carried his cross, gives his life, rises again that he may present all of us to the Father. The treasure was enormous. And he tells us to follow in those footsteps, to follow him, to follow where he leads, that we will surrender all. And I couldn't help but think when we were singing the song, I surrender all, I'm convinced that some of you, what you need to surrender first is just your shame. This is where I am. I've not done it right. I'm old. I don't know how much time there is left. I've messed up. But I surrender that to you, Lord, because I'm going to follow you. And I'm going to start today. And I'm going to do the hard things. Like, you hear it all the time. I want to lose 15 pounds. Okay, well, you want to meet me in the gym? No, I don't want to go to the gym. Well, can we talk about your diet? Well, I'm not going to change that. And it's like, okay, what you want is something you're not willing to sacrifice for, right? Clearly. Okay, but what God is saying is, if you have somebody that you dearly love, this is going to be somebody that is so dear to you, and they ask you to do something, it's like, yeah, I'd be glad to do that. I would be thrilled to sacrifice for you, right? Yeah, it's like, okay, that means you're going to have to get up at 4:30 in the morning for this. All right, fine. I'd love to be there. And it's because our treasure's there, and so it motivates us. So, Lord, we want you to captivate our hearts so that we can do the hard things. And it generates this interest because all of a sudden we realize we're part of something that has great reward. And the reward is knowing who he is and that he is with us. So this is what's happening here. He does find Rebecca before he talks to the family. Okay, and so we go down to, page 33. And let me see how much time. Okay, I think we're going to stop there because I do want to, let me finish the story. I do want to finish the story. Okay, so it tells her what happened. So they said to Rebecca, do you want to go or do you not? And she said, I do. And so she follows him with this nurse. This nurse is going to come with her. Her name is actually Deborah. We find that out later on. Deborah stays with this family for a very, very long time. And so they leave, and they come into this place, and Isaac is out in this land. They travel all this distance. She has no idea who Isaac is, but that God is in this story. And this is Abraham. This is someone that it's a familiar family. Maybe not to her, but to the family. And that he has come to seek her, and that she was the one who came out. And she says, yes, I want to go. And so as she comes into the field, she said, who's that? They said, that's Isaac. She puts her veil up on her, and so they come together. They do marry, and it says, and Isaac was so comforted even in the loss of his mom. Okay, so how did he find the comfort of God? It was through the loss of his mom. And that there's so many things that are not accomplished except through the death of some of our dreams. And when those things that we would hold on and say, but God, you are the dream. You are the dream. And that we would not be persuaded by all the things that we see in life that want to put us into a lane of traffic that's going fast. But that we would be able to come off and say, Lord, I want to be still and I want to know you. I want to know who you are. And my life may not look like everybody else's. And it may not be that we have all the things that other people have, but we have the greatest treasure, and we know our Maker, and it causes us to worship, to bow down and say, you are my God, and that I will spend forever with you. Okay? So we're going to stop there, and y'all can go ahead and read those things. You can read through the notes. I don't think I left out anything except the story that you can't. Page 3 would be sweet to y'all. Look at page 3 on the notes. Do you see in the middle of your page, it says Sarah and Abraham died in hope. They didn't get everything they wanted even in this world. Not what they were looking for. They died before Sarah ever saw, before she ever saw Isaac marry. But you know that these are things she prayed for, because this was the covenant of God. You have the land. It says there are approximately 470 to 700 years between when Abraham entered this land and where God's people entered to come in. That's a long, long time. And it says, Hebrews 11:14 says, all these people died. Speaking of all these people who had great faith, they all died, still believing what God had promised them. They did not receive what was promised, but they saw it all from a distance. They knew it was there. They saw it by faith, and they welcomed it. They agreed that they were foreigners and nomads here on earth, just passing through. It wasn't all about them receiving. It was about them carrying the baton of faithfulness to pass it on to another generation. And I have found that I have seen it in my own life, mostly with my mom. And I know that you've seen this, but I hear it from a lot of other people too. That so often it's like, I'm seeing now what my mom prayed for. I'm seeing the fruition. I'm saying that because of what the things that you see. It's like, and don't we want to live our lives that when we die later on, it's like, this was it. This is what she labored for. That we're not laboring just so that we can have and check it in and look it up and say, yes, I have enough. But that God is our provider. He is the sole reason we live. To him be the glory forever and ever, that we get to be with him and glorify him on this earth. He is the treasure. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Let's take these questions. I added an extra question that you can't see. I wrote it in. You know what I mean? Oh no, I didn't. I did type it. Look on page 4 at the top. Philippians 3:13. These are talking about, sometimes some of you are thinking, oh man, I've wasted a lot of years. And he says, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved perfection, but I focus on this one thing. I'm going to forget the past, and I'm going to look forward to what lies ahead. I press on, effort. Press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us. We get the prize. It's a greater prize than anything we prayed for in this earth. Okay? And then it says, can you identify places where great loss led you to great gain? Is anyone willing to think through that for just a minute and see if you want to share it? If you're not, no problem. But a time where it's like, yeah, that was really, really hard. But because of that, this gain. Does anybody have a story? I know y'all have a story like this. Would you do this?
I don't.